Coming up on It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. Are you worried about your metabolism? How does your metabolism impact you as you age? And is there anything you can do about it? You'll learn more from a registered dietitian. Skin cancer is on the increase. You know you need to protect your skin from the sun, but what do you look for and why is skin cancer on the rise? Find out. And recycling is something Gunderson Health System has been a national leader in the healthcare industry. But is it just aluminum or what else are they working on? You'll find out on It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System.
You know, house calls aren't typical anymore. But as a Gunderson cardiologist, I do the next best thing: outreach visits to my patients in rural clinics and hospitals. I love that I can bring care closer to home, especially when they're ill or the weather is not good.
At Gunderson Health System, our doctors go the extra mile, or 60, to provide care for patients. It's the driving force behind love plus medicine. Learn more about Gunderson hospitals and clinics at gundersonhealth.org.
Welcome back to It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. I'm Christopher. Many of us worry about our metabolism. Maybe you are too. A lot of people ask the question, how does your metabolism impact you as you age? And is there anything you can do about, impacting your metabolism? Joining us to talk a little bit more about that is Jessica Lind, registered dietitian, nutrition therapy, Gunderson Health System. Before we even, kind of dive into that, you said metabolism has been in the news a lot. Can you explain why?
Yeah, the hot issue that's been going on in the news lately is, of course, these new studies that are coming out regarding the Biggest Loser contestants.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a study that was recently posted in the Journal of
And they're putting
Obesity.
weight back on.
They are, yes. And so the contestants for The Biggest Loser, they took a season that occurred, I believe it is now 6 years ago, and they studied those contestants and looked at two different things: the amount of weight that they lost and the amount of weight that they regained, and what was happening to their metabolic rate over the course of that change. And what they found was that most of the contestants from that season gained back as much or more weight as they initially lost. And they also found that their metabolisms was burning on an average, I think, over 700 calories less than baseline of what we would expect. So the significance of that study for those participants was not only what we would expect to be the cause of weight regain, which is a return to old habits or other lifestyle changes, but that their bodies were actually rendered incapable of burning as many calories as they had initially. So metabolism and weight loss has been shining some light in the news recently, which is interesting.
So Jessica, do you think what's happened is that their bodies are now saying, you're burning so many calories, I need to go into reserve mode and start storing calories?
Yep, it's pretty amazing the things that our bodies are capable of adjusting to in the different things that we habitually do on a day-to-day basis. So for those contestants who went from being in feast mode, where they had excess calories every single day, which is of course likely what was contributing to their weight gain initially, they went into fast mode, where they were burning a significant amount of calories and they were eating much less than they had. So their bodies had to kind of go into crisis mode to switch up the processes that were occurring in their bodies. And over the course of that change, this change in metabolism happened.
So rapid weight loss isn't necessarily the best way to take weight off. It's really, we've heard the story of lifestyle changes and trying to do it over time, little bits, and that will allow you to then, you believe, have your metabolism sort of at least hit a baseline?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's one thing that we know for sure that is going to be healthy lifestyle changes for weight loss, and that is moderate activity and eating less calories moderately. So what we consider today to be a normal healthy rate of weight loss is about 1 to 2 pounds per week. which compared to what the contestants on the Biggest Loser were losing is significantly less. But any tweaks that you make in your diet and any changes that you make in your activity plans should be something that you're able to upkeep for the rest of your life. So it shouldn't be these extreme things for short periods of time. It should be something that is very slowly over time making change.
We're talking with Jessica Lind. She's a registered dietitian, Gunderson Health System in the nutrition therapy department. For us old guys, we notice our metabolism changes from when we were, much younger, when you could eat anything you wanted to, and then as we get older, it's, hey, the weight just goes. What happens? Why is that?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of background of what we currently look at as metabolism, for most people, when we talk about metabolism, it's going to be the process of taking the food that we eat and breaking it down into the things that we ultimately convert into energy, and then the way that we spend that energy after it's inside of our bodies. So there are a lot of things that affect how much energy your body is spending. This can be anything from the amount of calories that you're eating every day, the activities that you're doing, the amount of fat versus the amount of muscle that you have, the amount of sleep that you're getting, the amount of water that you're getting. Like I mentioned before, there are a lot of things in place in our bodies to adjust to different changes that we make, and your metabolism could definitely change as a result of those things. So for the average person as they age, we find that the things that affect your metabolism are the fact that your activity level usually goes down and your muscle mass usually goes down. So you're usually going from more muscle, less fat to more fat, less muscle. Muscle burns more calories than fat does. So once you start losing muscle mass and gaining more fat mass, ultimately you're going to be spending less energy and it's kind of going to snowball.
All right, so it kind of makes sense that when you're younger, you're certainly active and you are, I guess you could say, more lean. As you age, you don't have that ability, or you don't have that muscle mass. So you're saying work out.
Absolutely. Keep that moderate activity. That's going to be extremely important to keeping your metabolism on track, to not slowing it down or losing that muscle mass, to keep your body burning energy even when you're at rest. That's really the main factor that exercise is going to.
And I know that you've said that it doesn't have to be going to the gym to get that muscle mass. You can cut wood. You can do whatever it is out in the backyard.
Absolutely. You don't have to go to the gym. You can burn calories the old-fashioned way. Anything that you're doing that is activity is going to help you to keep that muscle mass on. Even if it's just parking in the last stall at the grocery store and walking in or taking the stairs, the smallest changes can definitely influence how much muscle mass you're able to maintain throughout the life.
One of the things you mentioned was sleep. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that impacts your metabolism and your activity level even?
Yeah, well, of course, the amount of sleep that you get affects a lot of things in your general health. And as far as metabolism goes, it's really just going to kind of help you maintain a healthy lifestyle. If you're tired, if you're fatigued all the time, you're less likely to be going out and
working in the yard.
Working in the yard, doing all these physical activity things that are going to help you maintain your muscle mass. And if you're consistently not getting enough sleep, as I mentioned before, there are pathways throughout your body that are going to be manipulated as a result.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
It is a vicious cycle, yes, but happily there are plenty of things that we can be doing to intervene in these negative cycles that we often find ourselves in.
Intervention is the key there.
Absolutely.
All right. Jessica Lind, Nutrition Therapy, Gunderson Health System. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And again, if you'd like to learn more about your metabolism or anything else nutrition related, you can go to the Gunderson Health System website. That's gundersonhealth.org. When we come back, skin cancer is on the increase. You know that you need to protect your skin out in the sun, but what do you look for, and why is skin cancer on the rise in the first place? You'll find out next when It's Personal continues. It's Personal is brought to you by Gunderson Health System.
As someone with cystic fibrosis, I spend a lot of time at Gunderson Health System. The doctors and nurses have become kind of like family. After a recent stay, I was hoping to go home when my nurse, Angie, told me I'd need to stay another day. Well, I wasn't very happy, and I might have let her know it as she left my room. A few minutes later, in walks someone dressed as a superhero. Mask, cape, boots, the whole deal. I didn't know who it was at first, but when she put her hands on her hips and said, "I heard someone isn't having a very good day," I knew exactly who it was. I've never laughed so hard in my life. Once again, my superhero nurse had saved the day.
Gunderson Health System employs the very best staff in the region, but it's their creative caring that makes them some of the best in the world. We call it Love Plus Medicine. Learn more about Gunderson hospitals, clinics, and specialty services at gundersonhealth.org.
Welcome back to It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. Skin cancer has been on the increase, and not just recently, over the last 20 years or so. Here to talk more about that is Dr. Stephen Webster, dermatologist, Gunderson Health System. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here, Chris.
I know you've talked about statistics before, but let's talk a little bit more about them in depth, because skin cancer has been something that has been trending on the increase for a number of years, but more than many cancers combined. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we've said for a long time 1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer. But when you take it down to figures, skin cancer is the most common malignancy there is. 5.4 million cases of skin cancer will be reported in America each year. That is more than the combined cancers of colon, breast, lung, and prostate. And breaking it down a little more, this means that 8,500 cases of skin cancer per day in America. And this is in America alone. So this is a significant problem, and it does appear to be increasing.
And these are the cases that are recognized and diagnosed,
Yes.
or determined. And do you feel like there's many cases out there that are not?
Unfortunately, we see people that don't pay much attention to their skin, and so eventually they get in, but we like to have them come in early.
Now, I know you're out in the community doing screenings for skin cancer. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm very pleased with the opportunity to be able to go out and set up skin cancer screening clinics and getting people to come in. We do this through the schools, through the companies, through Gunderson Clinics, and have people come in and look at the skin, because we are finding people don't pay much attention to the skin. And we are asking people to do skin self-examination. This is analogous to women doing breast self-exam. If a woman is used to examining her breast, she knows what it normally feels like, and she can pick up a new lump or something different and come in. Same thing. We're asking people once a month after your bath or shower, say, okay, I'm going to take 3 to 4 minutes and do my skin exam. Go over the entire body carefully, looking at places you don't always look at, bottom of the feet, in the groin, under the breast. See if there's anything new, a crusted area that isn't healing, or a mole that seems to be changing. This is essential, because if people get in early with skin cancer, it's very easy to treat.
Now, I would think that skin cancer would be someplace that's exposed to ultraviolet light only, but you're saying look everywhere.
Well, most of the skin cancer is caused by ultraviolet light, 90%. And so we see most of it on the face, the arms. But now, with bathing suit styles and so on, there's a lot more skin involved. It's kind of interesting. In the 1900s, the bathing suit styles exposed about 19% of the skin surface to the sun. Dermatologists dream, that's great. Nowadays, with the bikini, about 87% of the skin is exposed to the sun. So there is a changing in that more areas are involved.
So I know you've said you can, develop skin cancer in many different locations, but what are the most common? Ears, face, nose?
From the neck up, the ears and the lateral aspects of the face, the nose, unfortunately, and the forearms. Those are the most common areas, because those are the ones that continually get the most exposure.
Yeah, I know that truck drivers have their left hand out of the door. I've heard some people talk about the development of skin cancer on their left arm because of all of that exposure that they consistently get and don't think about.
Yes, there was a very interesting study done by America and England where they had a large series of location of skin cancers on the right side and on the left side of the body, left arm and right arm. And it came out, and it was kind of interesting because in America, on the left arm, more people had skin cancers, and on the right arm, in England, more people did. Because as I mentioned to one of the English doctors, well, that's because you drive on the wrong side of the street. He said, no, sir, you drive on the wrong side of the street. So it just proved that it is the ultraviolet light that causes skin cancer.
We're talking with Dr. Stephen Webster, dermatologist, Gunderson Health System, about the increase in the level of skin cancer diagnosis. Some people might say, well, our population is aging, so we're kind of getting, there's more of us that are getting older, so the development of more skin cancer might be sort of natural, but I think you might have a little argument with that.
Well, that is a factor, the fact that we have an aging population, so they're around a little longer. But the main factor is the exposure to ultraviolet light, and we're emphasizing that because that is something that we can do something about. Skin cancer is preventable if people pay attention and block the ultraviolet light. We can't do much about aging. A lot of us are finding that aging is kind of progressive.
Yeah, right. Not much we can do about it. Talk a little bit more about prevention. Wearing a hat.
Okay, there's basically you want to prevent exposure of the skin to the ultraviolet light. Number one, you want to remember the sun is most intense in the middle of the day. So if you like to garden or jog, it's better to do it later in the afternoon or earlier in the morning rather than 10 to 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Secondly, you want to wear proper clothes. In the winter, when it's cold in Wisconsin, we put on a coat when we go outside to protect ourselves from the cold. Duh, of course we do. Well, in the summer, you want to protect yourself from the sun with proper clothes. That means wearing a hat, and not a cap, but a hat with a 3-inch brim, wearing long sleeves, and they have shirts now, sun shirts that are very tightly woven material, but lightweight and well ventilated, so they're comfortable to wear. Wearing long slacks, again, of a very light material, and using a sunscreen. And the sunscreens are much more effective than they were before, and they're in sprays and creams and gels and solid sticks. We ask people to use a sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30, and most importantly now it should say broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is required by the FDA on the label. That means it protects against the entire ultraviolet light spectrum. And we ask people to put it on 20 to 30 minutes before going outside. This is a mistake that people make. They go outside, they start to sweat. Oh, darn it, I forgot my sunscreen. They apply it to the skin. It doesn't have a chance to set. It should be applied before you go outside so it has a chance to set. Just like in January, you don't go outside when it's 10 below for 10 or 15 minutes and then put a coat on. You put it on when you're going out the door. And it should be applied every 2 to 3 hours.
Why is it that when people go out on the river, it seems like they come back with that just absolutely awful sunburn? Is it the reflection off the water? What's the cause?
It's a combination of things. They're active and they forget about it and they're anxious to get out there, which we're blessed with a fantastic recreational river right in front of us.
And we certainly want people to go out and enjoy and get exercise and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
At the same time,
we
precautions.
emphasize to people that we're not asking you to stay in the basement all the time. We want people exercising and so on. That's good for them. But you protect yourself.
Right. It's a very important thing. For people out there who are questioning something that may be on their ear, their nose, on a hand, what would you tell them to look for when they're examining themselves? What are the
you're
major
looking
signs?
for a new lesion, a new hard, warty type lesion that seems to be growing rapidly, an area that isn't healing, particularly with pigmented lesions, with moles. And we're very concerned about the melanoma because that is increasing and is the most serious of the skin cancers. With a mole, when you're looking at a mole, you should remember A, B, C, D, E. A is asymmetry. If one side isn't equal to the other, that's abnormal. B is border. If it has an irregular border, that's abnormal. C is color. Not if it's dark or light, but if there's different colors in the same lesion, or if it's changing colors. D is diameter, if it's bigger than the head of a pencil or 6 millimeters. But most important, E, if it's evolving, if it's growing. And if people are used to looking at the moles, they can pick it up very acutely, because they say, gee, that is growing, or the border is now irregular. And those are the ones we want people to come in with, because the melanoma, and that's the one that's particularly increasing in women, there's been an 8-fold increase in women in malignant melanoma in the past 40 years, and it has to do with the tanning booths, no question about that. And right now, the malignant melanoma is the second most common malignancy seen in women 16 to 29 years of age, so that's very concerning.
All right, Dr. Webster, we're out of time. Any final advice? Check your skin, stay out of the sun, stay out of the ultraviolet if you can, and if you're going to be out there, certainly protect yourself.
Stay active, enjoy the beautiful part of the country we live in, but protect your skin from the sun, and if you have any questions, talk to your physician about it.
All right, good point. Dr. Stephen Webster, Gunderson Health System dermatologist, and again, protect yourself. When we come back, recycling. It isn't just about aluminum cans at Gunderson Health System. Find out how recycling is going to a new level. That's next on It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System.
My husband, Wally, spent a week recovering at Gunderson Health System. He's really patriotic, so he was a little bummed out that he'd be stuck there for the 4th of July. So after dinner, we rolled up to floor 6 for our usual walk. But something was different. There were people gathered up there, all smiling at us. Because at the end of the hall, right by a giant window, we saw a love seat, a flag, and a sign that read, "Per Dr. Botner, reserved for Wally." We could see the fireworks perfectly framed through the window. It was almost as good as seeing them down by the river, but with an extra bonus. No mosquitoes.
At Gunderson Health System, our staff of specialists, doctors, and nurses try to make the best out of every stay. It's a philosophy of care we like to call love plus medicine. Learn more about Gunderson hospitals, clinics, and specialty services at gundersonhealth.org.
Welcome back to It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. I'm Chris Stauffer. Recycling is something that Gunderson Health System has been a national leader in within the healthcare industry, and it's not just aluminum. Joining us to talk more about that is environmental compliance technician Andy Kragness. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me.
Andy, it's not just aluminum. What kind of things are being recycled at Gunderson Health System?
We're going to a co-mingled recycling here, so that's going to cover all your plastics 1 through 7. All your cardboard, paperboard, so like the boxes that the nitrile gloves are in. We'll be covering then the aluminum and all sorts of metals. We also recycle batteries here. We have separate containers for battery recycling. And then we're even starting to collect electronic waste. So you got your computers, cell phones, laptops, anything that has a cord in it essentially will be recycling.
You mentioned the word co-mingling. I guess when I think of that, I think of they have the big dumpster that most people have behind their homes now, and they just throw their cans and cardboard and only recycling the recyclable materials. Is that similar? Is that what we're kind of talking about?
Yeah, it is very similar. We do stress that there is a difference between co-mingled and single stream. Single stream is what you have at home in lacrosse here.
Okay.
The co-mingled, we do not put our paper in the co-mingled just because we have our separate confidential paper bins for that, which we stress that you put all paper in, just so if something, you don't get in the habit of tossing paper into the recycling bin, that all paper goes into the confidential bin, so we make sure that we keep all our confidential information secure.
So Andy, one of the questions I think that some people might say is, why is Gunderson doing this in the first place? Why not let somebody else deal with it? Why not, have the garbage man, deal with it?
Sure. First of all, it's the right thing to do, and that's very important here. We feel that at Gunderson, we want to do the right thing all the time. And we also want to make it easier for staff and patients here to be able to recycle. We don't want them searching around the buildings for their specific can to recycle. We want to make it easy, toss it all in one can, and then we send it to our recycling plant where they have the technology to easily sort it and get it recycled.
One of the things that I know that you're rolling out is there's a new program. You want to talk about that with recycling and what that's all about?
Yeah, we have our Think Downstream campaign, and that's just to make people realize that their actions could have a consequence on further down the line. If you were to happen to throw the wrong type of item into the garbage, it could be incinerated or put in a landfill where it could release toxic chemicals into our environment. And
for example, batteries.
Batteries, yeah, exactly. If you throw that into your garbage, that'll go to our incinerator, and that'll put off some very harmful toxins into the air that we breathe. And the incinerator is only half-mile upstream from us, so it'll be affecting you directly.
So some people would say, well, it's only one battery, but if you have 50 people thinking like that, then it gets to be...
Yeah, it adds up in a hurry if, and then when it does get incinerated, it gets burned down into a more concentrated level. So when you have that much come together, it'll add up in a hurry and cause a lot of problems.
Andy, one of the things that I think some people think is that when they dump something down the drain or down the toilet, that it goes to the water treatment plant, so it's going to be just fine. But that's not necessarily the case.
No, exactly, that's right. The water treatment plant is only able to remove biologicals from the water. So if you were to dump any sort of chemical down there, they cannot treat that and remove it from the water. So if you were to flush any unused medications, that won't be removed from the water, and that can have harmful effects to the wildlife. You hear about those studies where frogs have 3 or 5 legs. That's because of medication that gets disposed of down the water, down the toilet. So if you do have any medications you need to get rid of, you can bring them into Gunderson and put them in our public medication drop-off box to safely destroy those.
Yeah, and it's been pretty popular too, that people just bring it in when they have their appointment, drop it off in the huge container. It's almost the size of a mailbox.
Yeah, it's a great program. We're able to collect a lot of medication. So far this year, we've collected over 3,000 pounds of medication. And that's open to the general public. Patient, visitors, anyone is more than welcome to bring in their medication and put it in those bins.
And it's better to keep that stuff out of your medicine cabinet, because if you have a plumber coming in or electrician, not that you don't trust them, but having oxycodone or some other substance like that just provides access to somebody that may be using your bathroom.
Exactly, yeah. Those painkiller addictions, it's becoming a major problem. So if we're able to divert that, keep that off the streets, bring that in and safely and securely dispose of it, we're more than happy to do that.
We're talking with Andy Kragness. He's environmental compliance technician at Gunderson Health System. And I think when people think about you rolling out this new campaign about thinking in a more long-term and versus more immediate, for those of us who are older and are still working on doing our best to recycle, what would be your message to them at home?
Just familiarize yourself with what items you can recycle. The city is good about sending out flyers on recyclable material. And if you have any questions, just come forward to us and ask us. If it's something that you're unsure of, we might have not even thought of it either. And we can look it up for you, make sure that it is recyclable. And if not, we can tell you the best way, the proper way to dispose of it.
Yeah, one of the things I should ask is about, in the healthcare industry, there's a lot of tools and things that are used in surgery. And I know that's something that Gunderson is really focused on, trying to recycle that stuff when possible.
Yep. We have a vendor that comes in and collects our single-use devices and other equipment used in surgeries and procedures, and they can either pull a piece of the components apart and recycle the different types of materials in it, or they can actually refurbish it and have it meet FDA-approved standards to be reused.
Yeah, trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
All
yeah.
right. Andy, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Recycling is certainly something the Gunderson Health System has been a national leader in, and if you have any questions, you can certainly call the City of La Crosse or your local municipality, and as Andy said, you can also call Gunderson Health System. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Stauffer.